Hello, You Can Heal family. Look at you girls. Here, teeth are brushed, showered, and ready to go. Ah, adorable. I have my gulping drink. Now, why does it say hide that video, that message? Held for review. I don't know. There we go. Okay, Tracy Ann's here too. That's amazing. All right, so we're here tonight. It's Friday night. And we are continuing in chapter 2 of Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. And this chapter started off and we'll finish up with different stories from people who have things going on in their life and they're realizing that they are possibly codependents. So that's what we're doing tonight. The rest of the chapter is about 3.5 pages. So I'll see how we're doing if we want to head into chapter 3, which kind of defines codependency, but it's a really long chapter and it's a really good chapter. Oh God, I'm looking at myself in this camera. So we're going to do that and hopefully you'll find it really helpful. I know you will. I found my other glasses, so I'm going to be able to see the words tonight a lot better. So I'm just going to get right into it. Hopefully everybody's settled down. I know, Tracy, and it's a little earlier for you, but it's Friday night. So cozy up, listen up, and let's grow and heal and learn together. Alcoholism or chemical dependency is not the only family problem that can create a codependent person. Alyssa, the mother of 2 teenagers, worked part-time at a mental health organization when she went to a family counselor. She had previously gone to many family counselors in search for help. She went to counseling because her oldest child, a 14-year-old boy, was constantly causing problems. He ran away, broke curfew, skipped school, disobeyed other family rules, and generally did whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. This child, Alyssa told the counselor, is driving me crazy. She meant it. She was worried sick. Some days she was so depressed and troubled she couldn't get out of bed. Alyssa had tried everything she could think of to help this child. She placed him in treatment 3 times, put him in 2 different foster homes, and dragged the whole family from counselor to counselor. Alyssa had tried other techniques too. She had threatened, cried, hollered, and begged. She had gotten tough and called the police on him. She had tried gentleness and forgiveness. She even tried acting like he hadn't done the inappropriate things he had done. She had locked him out and she had traveled halfway across the state to bring him home after he ran away. Although her efforts hadn't helped her child, Alyssa was obsessed with finding and doing the one thing that would make him see the error of his ways and help him change. Why, she asked the counselor, is he doing this to me? He's ruining my life. The counselor agreed the problem with Alyssa's son was painful, upsetting, and required action, but the counselor also said the problem didn't have to run and ruin Alyssa's life. You haven't been able to control your son, but you can gain control of yourself, he said. You can deal with your own codependency. So now listen, this is a word and this is really big. This is really big. The mom asked, Alyssa asked, why is her son doing this to her? Why is he doing this to me? He's ruining my life. No, he's ruining his own life. And then we allow other people who are ruining their own life to ruin our life. Now, it might be hard for you to take, but you're going to have to if you want to heal and you want to grow, because we cannot blame what other people are doing and saying they're disturbing my peace or they're ruining my life or they're running my life, because you have a choice of what you're going to do with your life. Are you going to keep spending your time trying to fix and save and help someone till you're exhausted? Or are you going to say, I love myself and I'm going to do what I can to take care of myself and turn that other person over to the Lord? Because you cannot help someone who does not want to be helped. You will just end up, what does Lisa Smile say? Slam worn out. And that's the truth. And that's what was happening in the case of this mother. I'm going to move this candle because I feel like it's really hot next to my little hair that I do have, right? Yeah, that's what she was doing. So she had to realize, or the counselor in this particular story is helping her realize you can gain control over yourself and start dealing with your own codependency. And that can be hard for a lot of people to hear, like, oh, I have to do something. Like, no, if they just did something, if you just change, then I'll be okay. Mm-mm. No, no, no. Thanks, Lisa. It's trying to do something here. It is, but I was pretty happy with the turnout. But I caught some of the live tonight in the replay. I have to protective style my hair again, but yeah, I think that's the key for me. Now, moving on, there's another story, and the lady's name is Cheryl in this story. And then it's going to wrap the chapter. So we'll start the next chapter after this one. Cheryl also labels herself codependent. Shortly after marrying the man of her dreams, she found herself in a nightmare. Her husband, she learned, was a sex addict. Oh my goodness. In his case, that meant he couldn't control his urges to indulge in porno. He was compulsively drawn into affairs with other women, and, as Cheryl put it, God only knows what else and who else. She learned her husband was an ex-addict 1 week after their wedding, when she discovered him in the bed with another woman. Now, this is sad. Cheryl's first response was panic. Then she got angry. Then she felt concern for her husband and his problem. Her friends advised her to leave him, but she decided to stay in the marriage. He needed help. He needed her. Maybe he would change. Besides, she wasn't ready to lose her dream of that rosy future they would have together. Now, see, this too is where we get in trouble, because she's already thinking about the future, and this lady's in her present and in denial about what's happening, and thinking that now that he's met her, all this stuff is going to stop that he's doing. It won't. It won't. Her husband joined Sex Addicts Anonymous, a 12-step self-help group similar to AA. Cheryl refused to join Co-SA, similar to Al-Anon, her family members for ex-addicts. She didn't want to go public with her problem. She didn't even want to discuss it privately. Over a period of months, Cheryl, a successful fashion model, found herself accepting fewer work assignments, turning down evenings out with friends, and sticking closer to home. She wanted to answer the telephone in case women called for her husband. Oh, God. I underlined that when I read it. One of the times I read this book. You do. Your life just stops. You stop doing anything because you're trying to catch them in the act or control what they're going to do or not do next. That's so sad. She wanted to be home to see her husband when he left the house and returned. She wanted to see what he looked like, how he acted, and how he talked. She wanted to know exactly what he was doing and with whom he was doing it. She often called his essay sponsor to complain, to report, and to inquire about her husband's progress. She refused, she said, to be tricked and deceived again. Gradually, she alienated herself from her friends and activities. She was too worried to work. She was too ashamed to talk to her friends. Her husband had several more affairs. Her friends were frustrated with her for staying with him and constantly whining about how terrible it was to be his wife. So I can relate to this. I hear my mother in my head. Like, she could not understand why I hadn't left him yet. Why haven't I left him? What does the comments say? Ooh, I used to be that way. Yeah. We've all been there in some form or another if we're on this healing journey. And I'm not laughing at you, but I'm just thinking like it's so exhausting. It's so exhausting, but it's so real. It's so real. It's so real. She says here, what, did I read this? Yeah, she alienated herself from everybody. They will get the help they need to still leave you because you were with them at their lowest. Wait, am I reading that right? They will get the help they need to still leave you because you were with them at the lowest. I don't know if I'm reading it right or understanding what you're saying. I know from my experience, they would only get maybe you're saying they'll get the help they need when they think you're going to leave because they don't want to lose the comforts of home. Oh, goodness. I couldn't stand the sight of my husband. I had nothing but contempt for him, yet I couldn't bring myself to leave him. Cheryl reported later, I couldn't make myself do much of anything except worry and check up on him. My turning point was the night I chased him with a butcher knife. Cheryl said it was my lowest point. I was running through the house screaming and raving when I suddenly became aware for the first time of me. I had gone mad. I was crazy, completely out of control. And he just stood there calmly looking at me. I knew then I had to do something to get help for me. And I've got a big box around that paragraph. How true is that, right? You're just finally so fed up that you become dangerous to the max, right? You just morph into this whole other creature. And luckily, she got a look at herself and was like, it's time for me to get some help. So relatable. Yeah, it is very relatable. So, so relatable. You're reading my story. Yeah, well, shake your head and then lift your hands and praise the Lord because now you can shake your head. Before, you thought you were really doing the right thing or you were doing the best we can with what we knew then. So thank God for the deliverance and wanting to be better and wanting to figure out, you know, what was really going on with us to make us stay with people who would get us to the point of wanting to seriously physically hurt them. Cheryl joined COSA shortly after that incident. It was at those meetings, that she began to label herself and her loss of control as codependency. Cheryl is now separated from her husband and seeking a divorce. She is also feeling better about herself. Yeah, it's very hard to label yourself something. You know, for me to even go to the CODA meetings, the Codependence Anonymous meetings, and walking in there, and I didn't want to be like them. I didn't want to be like them. I don't want to be like you. But it was a good choice. It was a good choice. Very difficult to do. And then you guys, I even sought out online meetings when COVID hit. COVID hit and you couldn't go to the building anymore. And that was helpful too. So healing is not a one and done. It's not a one time, read one book, go to one group. Don't fool yourself. It's a start and it's good. And, give yourself credit when you do those things, but it's an everyday thing. And I got hit hard this week with that lesson. I tell you, I was like, oh, am I relapsing here? What's happening? But I picked up on it really quick. But I tell you, although the preceding examples have been dramatic, meaning all the stories we've read, codependency doesn't necessarily have to be so intense, and it doesn't always involve experiences with deeply troubled people. Kristen is married, has 2 young children, and knows of no alcoholism or compulsive disorders in her immediate or extended family. Yet she calls herself codependent. Her problem, she says, is that other people's moods control her emotions. She, in turn, tries to control their feelings. Now, listen up. If my husband is happy and I feel responsible for that, then I'm happy. If he's upset, I feel responsible for that too. I'm anxious, uncomfortable, and upset until he feels better. I try to make him feel better. I feel guilty if I can't, and he gets angry with me for trying. And it's not only with him that I behave codependently, she added. It's with everyone, my parents, my children, guests in my home. Somehow, I just seem to lose myself in other people. I get enmeshed in them. I'd like to do something about it, this thing called codependency, before it gets any worse. I'm not terribly unhappy, she said, but I'd like to learn how to relax and just start enjoying myself and other people. A minister summarized the conditions this way: some people are really codependent, and some of us are a little bit codependent. So, yeah. And, sometimes the things she was doing makes you seem like a really caring person or an understanding person, but you're never relaxed at all, like this lady. Lisa said it's relatable. You're reading her story, Tracy, and that does sound absurd. They actually want you to get to that point. It's like they know they have you hooked if they can get you to lose your character. Yeah, that the term for what we just read and what you just commented is the gaslighting. In some form or another, where they just poke at you, say things, do things, their actions to the point where you finally just blow up, and you act like a complete maniac, and they're so calm. I would always hear, "Why are you yelling? Why are you yelling? Why are you yelling? Why are you mad?" What do you mean, why am I yelling? You just like did some horrible thing. Yeah, that was good, Tracy. That was a good comment. That's a good comment. Oh yeah, they're so calm. They're so calm. They're so. Why are you raising your voice? uh, and I can think back to those times, and now I'm just like, I don't feel bad about myself anymore, like for getting that way. But I just think how powerful, how much a person can just get control over us, right? Or keep it on myself, of me, how I let someone control my behavior to the point where I lost control. And that is not a place we need to be. Plus, it's really lonely because that means if you finally just grab a knife or choke someone or hit someone or whatever it is you're doing physically, then it just lets you know you haven't been taking care of yourself to get to that point, and you've been ignoring and like stuffing in everything that you've been dealing with and happening to the point where you just blow up. I chose the preceding examples. Now, this is the author talking. I chose these examples because they're interesting and represent a variety of experiences. They also illuminate a point that needs to be made. No single example illustrates the typical codependent or his or her experience. Then I underline pretty much the rest of this paragraph. Codependency is complex. People are complex. Each person is unique, and each person's situation is different. Some people have extremely painful and debilitating experiences with codependency. Others don't, and may be only mildly affected. Sometimes codependency is a person's response to another person's alcoholism. Sometimes it isn't. Each codependent has a unique experience born from his or her circumstances, history, and personality. So all those things, play into how you're going to deal with someone who has some type of addiction or bad behavior. Yet, a common thread runs through all stories of codependency. It involves our responses and reactions to people around us. It involves our relationships with other people, whether they are alcoholics, gamblers, ex addicts, overeaters, or normal people. Codependency involves the oh my gosh, that doesn't make sense. Codependency involves the effects these people have on us and how we in turn try to affect them. As Al Anon members say, identify, don't compare. That was a good sentence. Now, I read this in January 28th of 19, and then I read it again in March 25th of 17. Codependency involves the effects these people have on us and how we in turn try to affect them. So that's pretty much saying someone in your life is an alcoholic and they're affecting you. So then you turn around and try to affect their lives by getting them to stop doing what it is they're doing that's hurting them and everyone around them. Okay, so there's activities here. There's 2 of them, so I'll read them and you can write them down if you want to do the work, or pause the video when it's uploaded and just take your time answering them out loud. But the first one is, did you identify with any people in this chapter? The first one. There's 3 parts to this one. The second question in number 1 is, what helped you think of yourself? So what specific thing did you hear that helped you think of yourself? And which relationships did it bring to mind? So what actual person came up for you as you were thinking about yourself and hearing and identifying with someone in the stories? And then why? Why did that relationship come to your mind? Okay. And the second activity is, you might find it helpful to buy a large notebook and record your responses to these activities. You can also write down other thoughts and feelings you have as you read this book. And I might have said it the first night, this book is not for the faint at heart. Like, if you're not ready to start your healing journey, this is the wrong playlist for you right now, because it will probably make you hurt more and sad more and upset more, and it could be very triggering. So get your counselor, get on there, get in the book. So you might not think you need your therapist today, but in a month you might, because it will probably take us that long. And then you'll have that appointment when you need it. Don't be trying to scramble for your appointment when you're desperate and cannot get in. You don't want to do that, okay? You can also do a book a free call on my button there on the webpage too, if you need some support. And yeah, we're still going to do our live call as a You Can Heal family. We're still going to have that, okay? So now I'm not feeling like I'm ready to stop yet. So if you fall asleep, that's okay. You can always listen later. Oh, that was a good gulp for God. Okay, Lisa's openly admitting in the comments, for those of you who can't see them, she said she has growth work to do in healing. So that's good. She's admitting that and she's ready. Okay, you said it, not me. Yeah, gulping. Okay, so now we're on chapter 3, and I did not put this in the title, so I guess I'm going to have to go back if I decide to do that and put it in here. So the first, let's see, we'll look at, that section's really long. So we're going to look at like the introduction to this section. Tell my business. Yeah, you might, by you being brave enough to type that, Lisa, it might help someone else. We don't know. We're doing the Lord's work here. Okay? You're getting better every second. Like you said on your video, you were looking at your clock and the seconds kept going by. Because you're listening to this, you were not the same person you were when the live started. That's wonderful, right? So we'll read chapter 3, what's codependency? And then there's a section, the brief history. Well, it's not brief. There's like 6 or 7 pages. So we will see how far we get. Okay. Chapter 3, codependency. Relationships are like a dance with visible energy racing back and forth between the partners. Some relationships are the slow, dark dance of death. Colette Dowling. Ugh, yeah, that's what it is. 7:22 go. Oh, 7:11 go. Yeah, I needed it. All right, here we go. Up to this point, I have been using the words codependent and codependency as lucid terms. However, the definitions of these words remain vague. The definition of chemical dependency means being dependent psychologically and/or physically on alcohol or other drugs. Overeating and gambling are also words that bring specific ideas to mind. But what is codependency? The obvious definition would be being a partner in dependency. This definition is close to the truth, but still unclear. It brings no specific image to mind. Codependency is part of treatment-centered jargon, professional slang that's probably unintelligible to people outside that profession and gibberish to some inside the trade. So yeah, that word what? Co what? It is a hard word on its own to get your head around. When you think of the word dependency, you're dependent on something. So a co is someone along, like a coworker works alongside of you. So if there's a person in your life who's dependent on something, you are like working alongside of them in that struggle. So you're codependent too. But in your own, it shows up in a very different way. Your dependency may not be on the alcohol or drug, on the person using it, right? If that makes sense. Jargon may or may not mean anything in particular. Jargon may mean different things to different people, or people may sense what a term means, but not be able to clearly define it because it's never been clearly defined. Okay, it's never been clearly defined. Those are some of the problems I've encountered with researching and attempting to define codependency and codependent. Many people haven't heard the terms. Others who are familiar with the words can't define them. If they can, each definition is different, or people define the words by using more jargon. To complicate matters, I can't find the words in any dictionaries. My computer keeps tagging the words as misspelled, trying to convince me they're not words. Yet, codependency does mean something in particular, something particularly important to me and millions of people. Let's get rid of the jargon and look at that meaning. So, before we start doing that, what does this say here? Sister Lisa, I have growth work to do, and I have 20 years on you. We never stop needing work. Oh, Tracy Ann, it's so interesting you said that. So I was thinking about Lisa and her age compared to ours. And like, thank God she's doing such good work now because you don't want to be 50 something, right? So this is good. This is such good, so good. I just want to heal, Tracy, and correct where I went wrong and be better. Well, Lisa, that's a good comment, but you can't, well, you want to correct where you went wrong. Maybe you mean you don't want to make those mistakes again, right? Because you can't go back and correct anything. That's why people feel guilty all the time or they stay stuck because they keep thinking about what they did wrong and how they messed up. So we're going to move forward. And when we think about something from our past, it inspires us to keep going. It's just like a little kick in the rear, right? to just keep going because you don't want to be back in whatever image that's come up in your head. But don't let it, when we let it get us sad, it's very hard to dig out of that hole. And remember, every choice we made or the things that happened to us is for God's glory, especially now that you're in Christ and you're a believer. Especially when you're a believer, God turns every sorrow, and he keeps every tear in a bottle. That's actually a scripture in the Bible. He keeps every tear that you ever shed over anything. He saves them all our little tears, all your tears, he saves them. And that's so good, right? Nothing's a waste. Nothing that has happened in our lives is a waste. God is going to get the glory for it because he chose you to have that come up in your life, and he wouldn't give you more than you can handle. And he's the author and finisher of your faith, so you can't go wrong when you look at it from a spiritual perspective. Now this section here says, what's codependency? I have heard and read many definitions of codependency. In an article from the book Codependency, an Emerging Issue, Robert Sugi wrote, codependency is an emotional, psychological, and behavioral condition that develops as a result of individuals' prolonged exposure to and practice of a set of oppressive rules which prevent the open expression of feeling as well as the direct discussion of personal and interpersonal problems. So that's one definition, and that was a mouthful, right? Hi, Tracy Ann. Oh, you're not sad tonight. Praise the Lord. I'm telling you that the Lord is that healing balm of Gilead. He is. Now, another definition of codependency, Ernie Larson, another codependency specialist and a pioneer in that field, defines codependency as those self-defeating learned behaviors or character defects that result in a diminished capacity to initiate or to participate in loving relationships. And most of us desperately codependents want to be in a loving relationship and healthy, but our character defects stop that from happening, and learned behaviors, which are really habits that are bad. Why do we have a lot of bad habits? Based on what happened in childhood, and we bring that into our adulthood. So we got to fix all that. We got to program our brain. Lisa, when you are slain in the spirit, I always thank the Lord that you are building a strong relationship with God at this age. I was not there at 35. Keep seeking the Lord, sister. Smiles. Yeah, keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's so good. Now, another definition, some less professional definitions are these. Codependency means, said one woman, that I'm a caretaker. Being codependent means I'm married to an alcoholic, responded one woman. It also means I need to go to Al-Anon. Codependency, replied another, means I'm up to my elbows in alcoholics. It means I'm always looking for someone to glob onto. Codependency, it means I know any man I'm attracted to, fall in love with, or marry will be chemically dependent or have some other equally serious problem. Codependency, explained one person, is knowing all your relationships will either go on and on the same way, painfully, or end the same way, disastrously, or both. Yeah. If I think about that and I look back at all the relationships, pain, disaster, pain, a hot mess. Oh my goodness. There are almost as many definitions of codependency as there are experiences that represent it. In desperation or perhaps enlightenment, Some therapists have proclaimed codependency is anything and everyone is codependent. So, who's got the inside story? Which definition is accurate? A brief history of codependency will help answer these questions. I have at least 4 different color highlights, or 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. So I know I've read this book at least 3 times. Okay. So now this next part of chapter 3 is a history of codependency. And I know I'm not going to be able to read all this tonight, but we're going to get started. And I think right there would be a good place to stop. So listen closely, and I hope it's not too technical. I don't think it is. I always found this book really easy to follow. So just tune in and take what you're going to hear seriously, and try to learn, because that's how we change and grow, by getting new information that'll help bring understanding to our situation currently that we're in, if we're in an unhealthy relationship now, or ones we have been in, which will enlighten us a little bit. The word codependency appeared on the treatment scene in the late 70s. I don't know who discovered it, although several people may claim to have done so. The word emerged simultaneously in several different treatment centers in Minnesota, according to information from the office of Sandra Smalley, CCDP, a licensed psychologist and a leader in the codependency field. Maybe Minnesota, the heartland of chemical dependency treatment and 12-step programs for compulsive disorders, discovered it. Robert Suby and John Friel, in an article from the book Codependency, an Emerging Issue, wrote, originally, it was used to describe the person or persons whose lives were affected as a result of their being involved with someone who was chemically dependent. The codependent spouse or child or lover or someone who was chemically dependent was seen as having developed a pattern of coping with life that was not healthy as a reaction to someone else's drug or alcohol use. Okay, so basically, if you are a child, a spouse, a caretaker, a lover to someone who is chemically dependent on something, the way you deal with what they're going through and how you cope causes you to be the codependent. Because now you're developing different habits and patterns that aren't healthy. Example, I talked about the last time, hiding keys, right? It's not normal. And what should be a normal, loving marriage relationship, right? Or questioning a person over and over, or just manipulating a person all the time to try to get them to see things your way, or to change or do something different. So you pick up all these bad habits because you're just trying to cope. You're trying to I'm going to do whatever I can to make it seem like my life is normal and okay. It was a new name for an old game. Professionals had long suspected something peculiar happened to people who were closely involved with chemical dependent people. Some research had been done on the subject, indicating a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual condition similar to alcoholism seemed to appear in many non-alcoholic or non-chemically dependent people who were close to an alcoholic. Words, more jargon, which would later become synonymous for codependent, surfaced to describe this phenomena: co-alcoholic, non-alcoholic, and para-alcoholic. Now this is good. This is good when you're dealing with someone with some kind of addiction. You take on your own physical problems, mental problems, emotional problems that are not actually alcoholism or drug addiction, but let me just use an example. Like I can plug in for all these, like physical. I still am dealing with really bad gut health issues because of all the trauma I experienced and all the time I spent trying to help other people mentally. I was, you guys know, I was in hospitals, right? So I had mental health issues and had to take medicine because I was always trying to help someone else or fix someone else. Emotionally, I would sneak eat. I would, emotional eating was a big problem for me, big problem. And I know that if anything's bothering me and I want to eat when I'm not hungry, besides just like wanting a little snack, but just like I'm not hungry at all. I don't need food, but I'll eat and eat. And I would just eat until I was like sick because at least it was something I was controlling that. Like someone was finally doing, I was getting myself, I was doing to myself what I was trying to do for everybody else, which was get their life under control. So me eating would help me have control over something because everything else was completely out of control, right? And then spiritually, sometimes God was really close, or I would just go days and days and days without reading the word because I didn't have any physical strength to do anything or mental capacity to even make the words come alive on the page, right? So hopefully that helps with that paragraph. Lisa said that was a good example. Okay. 7-Eleven size gulp. Codependents certainly felt the effects of codependency long before the word was coined in the 1940s, after the birth of Alcoholics Anonymous. A group of people, primarily wives of alcoholics, formed self-help support groups to deal with the ways their spouse's alcoholism affected them. They didn't know they would later be called codependents. They did know they had been directly affected by their mate's alcoholism, and they were envious that alcoholics had a 12-step program to recover through. The wives also wanted a program, so they used the AA 12-step program, revised the AA 12 traditions, changed its name to Al-Anon, and it worked. Millions of people have since benefited from Al-Anon. And I remember so many times trying to go to Al-Anon, but I was so codependent, I would ask my ex-husband if I could go to the meeting. Of course, he didn't want me to go to the meeting because that could help expose what was going on. Oh my God! So I never went to an Al-Anon meeting. I tell you, the basic thought then, and in 1979, when the word codependency emerged, was codependents, co-alcoholics, or para-alcoholics were people whose lives have become unmanageable as a result of living in a committed relationship with an alcoholic. And you can substitute alcoholic for any other addiction. But yeah, your life becomes unmanageable. That was it. And that's one of the 12 steps to admitting that your life's unmanageable and you need help. You need help. It says, however, the definition for codependency has expanded since then. Professionals began to better understand the effects of the chemically dependent person on the family and the effects of the family on the chemically dependent person. Professionals began to identify other problems such as overeating and undereating, gambling, and certain sexual behaviors. These compulsive disorders parallel the compulsive disorder or illness of alcoholism. Professionals also began to notice many people in close relationships with these compulsive people developed patterns of reacting and coping that resembled the coping patterns of people in relationships with alcoholics. Something peculiar had happened to these families too. So that was a lot that was just said there. So sometimes you can be in a relationship with someone who's an alcoholic or drug user, and then your life's so unmanageable unmanageable that before you know it, you pick up their addiction, right? You start doing what they're doing because you're trying to cope with what they're doing because you're in so much pain all the time and confused and hurting. As professionals began to understand codependency better, more groups of people appeared to have it. Adult children of alcoholics, people in relationships with emotionally or mentally disturbed persons, people in relationships with chronically ill people, parents of children with behavior problems, people in relationships with irresponsible people, professionals, nurses, social workers, and others in helping occupations. Even recovering alcoholics and addicts noticed they were codependent and perhaps had been long before becoming chemically dependent. Codependence started cropping up everywhere. Yeah, this is so good. Did you guys hear that? As professionals began to understand codependency better, more groups of people appeared to have it, especially adult children of alcoholics. Little kids grow up sometimes in houses where parents drink, drink, drink. No one gets help. And, the kid goes all through school and high school never touching this stuff because they realize what it did to their parents. But as adults, they have so much to work through because that's trauma all those years. All right. When a codependent discontinued his or her relationship with a troubled person, the codependent frequently sought another troubled person and repeated the codependent behaviors with that new person. These behaviors or coping mechanisms seem to prevail throughout the codependent's life if that person didn't change these behaviors. So you get out of one relationship and you think, finally, out of that. And then you meet someone else and it's a different face, but the same type of person because you never did any healing work in between. So now you're in the next relationship trying to fix what you didn't complete fixing the other one. So you just jump from one to the next. Was it safe to assume codependency was triggered through relationships with people who have serious illnesses, behavior problems, or destructive compulsive disorders? Alcoholism in the family helped create codependency, but many other circumstances seem to produce it also. One fairly common denominator was having a relationship personally or professionally with troubled, needy, or dependent people. But a second, more common denominator seemed to be the unwritten, silent rules that usually developed in the immediate family and set the pace for relationships. These rules prohibit discussion about problems, open expression of feelings, direct, honest communication, realistic expectations, such as being human, vulnerable, or imperfect, selfishness, trust in other people and oneself, playing and having fun, and rocking the delicately balanced family canoe through growth or change, however healthy and beneficial the movement might be. These rules are common to alcoholic family systems, but can emerge in other families too. So basically, families where you can express your feelings or talk about things or things were hidden, you know, you couldn't be vulnerable. You're told don't be selfish and trust. Like all these things are underlying things like are part of your family dynamic. It says, now I return to an earlier question. Which definition of codependency is accurate? They all are. Some describe the cause, some the effects, some the overall condition, some the symptoms, some the patterns, and some pain. Codependency either meant or has come to mean all the definitions listed earlier. I'm not trying to confuse you. Codependency has a fuzzy definition because it is a gray, fuzzy condition. It is complex, theoretical, and difficult to completely define in one or two sentences. Why all this fuss about a definition? Because I'm going to attempt the difficult. Define codependency in one sentence. And I want you to see the broader picture before I show you the narrower one. I hope this approach might help you identify codependency in yourself if that identification is appropriate. Defining the problem is important because it helps determine the solution. Here, the solution is vital. It means feeling better. It means recovery. So here is my definition of codependent. A codependent person is one who has let another person's behavior affect him or her and who is obsessed with controlling that person's behavior. When I read that, I knew I was codependent. I said, I cannot for one more day act like there's nothing wrong with me. Let's just seal the deal. So that was in March 28th, 2017. If you let another person's behavior control you, affect you, and then you become obsessed with trying to turn around and control that person, it's okay. Take a deep breath. You find that you could relate to that condensed definition, you're in the right place. Oh my goodness. Lisa said, oh my goodness. Yeah, oh my goodness. But listen, admitting that you do that or that what's going on was or is now, it's okay. This is a safe channel. This is a safe channel where we share in safety, where we uncover the truth. When I tell you the truth, and you got to take it even if you don't want to hear it. So if you don't want to hear the truth, don't sign up for the group coaching call. Because if you say something and I feel in my spirit, I'm going to call you on it. Because that's the good work that's got to be done. You know, up to as much as I know, I can help you as far as I've grown. And that's the goal. But yeah, don't feel sad right now. If you're listening, watching this replay, yeah, you got to take it tonight, Lisa. Don't feel sad. If you feel like, okay, raise your hand. Yes, I'm codependent, And I used to say in my group, when I was doing the abuse group for the women, instead of saying, I'm, in meetings, you say, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I'm Shena, I'm a codependent. I would always have the ladies say, whatever their issue was, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm recovering from whatever it is they were working on, because you're better off tonight after hearing this video than you were before it started. So you're growing. This is growth, and growth is good. And you should want to be growing every day in this area. And then, there's other areas to you as well. So don't get off this video, this call, what is this live tonight and feel sad. That's not what we want, right? We want to leave the presence of this channel feeling stronger, feeling empowered, feeling like you've got answers. But you want it to be thought-provoking, though. You want to think. Get your journal out if you're feeling heavy, and get that heaviness out of you, and do a little writing. I gotta take it tonight. Tracy Ann. Okay, Tracy Ann. Yeah, Tracy Ann. We've had a couple of those. Praise the Lord. And the N, I love the NAH. You guys are hilarious. Nah. I'm gonna correct you now. That's hilarious. I love it. Yeah. And I think too, in my core mission statement or whatever, it's like You be honest with me on a call, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to respect you, and you're going to respect me, and we're going to grow together because you learn from me, and I learn from you too. When you share, I learn something as well. So it's a beautiful thing. Say it again, coaching. No, Lisa smiles. Now you got me on here trying to talk words I've never seen before. I bet that's not in the dictionary. If we looked up NaH, it's probably some crazy acronym to something awful. I can imagine what it stands for. Speaking of acronyms, we were at the field trip today and we were in one of the exhibits, and my poor little Bren, we were in this room that dealt with like refugees and war and groups of people that want to hurt other people and all this stuff. And I had gone out to get the other kids I was in charge of because they had left and reel them back in. So going back, as I'm going back in, Bren is heading out, and she just looked so sad. So she was reading up and looking at a picture with some people that their letter begins with K, and there's more than one of them. And that thing just hurt my little daughter. She was like, "Why do people want to do that?" And then she got home from school and was still talking about it. And then again later tonight, I said, "Oh gosh, so yeah, that's Tony's speech for you." Don't say it and give her more ammo. Mm-mm. I hear you, Tracy. It's hilarious. Yeah, Lisa remembers. Lisa, you have a good memory. You probably did good in school. The things you wanted to remember because you remember things about what we've said or shared, which I think is funny. She makes me laugh. So yeah, just laugh tonight. Like, what time is it? Well, it's already 11, so well, Tracy's a little earlier, but when you get off a call like this or hearing things that could be heavy on your heart, do something light. You know, it's Friday night, so you could stay up a little later. Watch a funny movie. Listen to something funny. That's always been one of my things in my healing journey. Like if something's really bothering me and I was processing it and working myself out of it, and spending 40 minutes journaling or reading or doing something that was difficult, because I know for me, it's my forehead when a big part when I began healing was learning how to meditate. And I was always afraid of it. I always thought, oh, that's not scriptural, meditating and yoga and all that stuff. But for me, it ended up being I needed to learn how to quiet my mind, because my mind would race all the time, like constant things going on in there. So I had to learn how to quiet my mind and still my mind. And yeah, I don't know how I got off on that, but yeah, meditate. But not even meditating on the word. I needed to learn how to just have nothing in my mind at all, because it was always racing. And that was a part of mental illness too, is racing thoughts. Now listen, I'm not a mental health professional, counselor, therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist. So anything I say that has to do with mental health, get a book, check the facts, talk to your own counselor. I'm just sharing my experience with you, as I had to learn how to have nothing in my mind. And Deepak Chopra taught me, just go back to that centering thought, that was the thought. So nothing could be in my head, and just learn to be still and quiet and peace, and do it. I would learn to do it sitting on the floor, to be as close to the earth and grounded as possible. And it's very difficult to do, to clear your mind, but it's important. The Bible says meditate. Lisa said she needed to laugh tonight. Well, good. I hope. I don't know if I said anything funny, but I'm glad you laughed. That's good. That's real good. Okay, so we're going to stop there with that definition. And then the next time we read, we're going to finish this chapter, and we're probably going to go into chapter 4 a little bit. Chapter 4 is really interesting because it gives you all these Codependence May, and it gives you all these titles, and then it hauls off all these things. You guys, I have them like all circled just about. I do. So we'll get there. Slow and steady, right? So thank you, ladies, for joining me. Are there any questions? Do you have any questions before I sign off of this live? Thank you to those watching the replay and those who are watching tonight but didn't comment. Thank you for being here. Yeah, you make me laugh. Well, I'm glad that I can. I trust that you guys are all going to have a great day tomorrow. I'm going to get to see my oldest child tomorrow. I'm excited about that. We're going to go to the baby store to buy baby tomorrow together. So that's going to be fun. Whoops, looking forward to that. So, all right. Thank you, Sister Coach. I love that, Tracy Ann. Good night, Tracy. Oh, Tracy Ann, with the I love you sign. I've been seeing that in the comments, and I love that. Oh, that's going to be fun. It is. It's going to be real fun seeing Bria. So I love my belly. And then it ends up Dolly and Singy have to come along too. And I thought it was just going to be me and Belly, but Blessing has to work. So then there's going to be no one for Bren, but it'll be fun having all three of the girls together. It's going to be probably hilarious. So, all right. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll see you for the tomorrow. I might do the Jesus Calling live at 11. I know I'm on this committee with my family. Oh my gosh, this family reunion that's supposed to take place in Georgia. I'll just say that. So we have that call tomorrow at 10. So I'll see if I can get out that time. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm just talking to myself. All right. I love you guys. I will see you soon. Always remember that true healing begins with self-love. Why? Because God is love and he lives on the inside of you. Talk later. Bye. I should have said bye now.